Now that you've shared my frustration, I want to talk to you today. I'm Jeffrey Darty, the Christian Whistleblower, bringing you the gospel truth about the hand that keeps you down, the so-called fivefold ministry that is offered as such a great thing to you within the realms of Christianity. Some are apostles, some are prophets, some are evangelists, some are pastors, and some are teachers. It's offered to you as a great thing. It's offered to you as a wonderful thing. And all it is five fingers on the hand that keeps you down. I want you to like, I want you to share, I want you to subscribe, and I want you to meditatively consider supporting this work financially. And I have these stars and these moons on here because it really is magic they're working on you. It's control of human intention, which is magic. And as you can see, the black background, it's actually black magic, because they are overriding your intention. And that is no bueno, ladies and gentlemen, no bueno whatsoever. So let's talk about the fivefold hand that holds you down, the fivefold ministry. What am I talking about? For those of you that have no Christian background, let me explain it to you. And to the rest of you, let me make it plain, simple, and easy. This is Paul writing in Ephesians chapter 4. And he starts with verse 11. He says, and he, speaking of Paul's God, which was the Lord, Yahweh, Jehovah, he gave some apostles and some prophets and some evangelists and some pastors and some teachers. Some say it's teaching pastors, so there'd be 4 gifts rather than 5, but we'll stick with the 5: apostles, prophets, evangelists, pastors, and teachers. What are they for? For the perfecting of the saints, for the work of the ministry, for the edifying of the body of Christ, until we all come in unity of the faith and of the knowledge of the Son of God, unto a perfect man, unto the measure of the stature of the fullness of Christ, not be children tossed to and fro, carried about with every wind of doctrine, by the sleight of men and cunning craftiness, whereby they lie in wait to deceive, but speaking the truth in love, may grow up into him in all things, which is the head, even Christ. Now, it's important to understand who Paul was talking to. The Ephesians were the group that was probably given the most freedom within the entire Roman Empire, even though they were controlled by Rome. They were an extremely prosperous port city, and kind of like the Chinese have done with Hong Kong, just let them alone, they'll make more money for us. So what they did was basically leave the Ephesians alone. Paul goes in there and creates all kind of havoc, because Ephesus was the home of the goddess Artemis. And these folks that worship the goddess Artemis were, of course, very, very convinced and convicted pagans. They believed that they were direct children of Artemis. And as such, they were filled with the belief that they were able to manifest a lot of their own spirituality. And Paul, coming up against not only Artemis, but coming up against that situation of wanting to be your own guru, guide your own spirit, master your own ascension, caused a riot in Ephesus. And it went so far as that the people of Ephesus actually threw Paul out. This is Revelation 2. And to the church of Ephesus, I know you can't bear them which are evil, that tried to say they are apostles and are not, and has found them liars. So Ephesus actually ran Paul out on a rail. Ephesus said, no, we're going to not let you condemn the deity that we have within us. We're not going to let you condemn the goddess that we are the special people of, at least in their view. And we're not going to allow you to lord yourself over us. So that's kind of the cultural context of what you're reading here. So the reason Paul came up with this idea, everybody in Ephesus wanted to be their own guru. Everybody in Ephesus wanted to guide their own spirit. Everybody in Ephesus wanted to master their own ascension. So in an effort to keep them down and get some control over these people that for some reason didn't think they had original sin, but felt they had the spark of divinity within, in order to get control of these people that for some reason believed that they could follow the ways and the truths themselves and lead themselves to life, what he did was come up with this, what Christians call a fivefold ministry, and really is a fivefold bureaucracy of controllers between you and the Christ. So he creates this thing called apostles. He creates this thing called prophets. He creates this thing called evangelists. He creates this thing called pastors, this thing called teachers. And he says that they're for the perfecting of the saints. And of course, the implication is if the saints need perfected, they're not perfect. And that the saints can't reach this perfection, or they can't perfect themselves on their own. Let's look at the Greek here for a moment so we can get an understanding of exactly what he's teaching people. So he says, look, with a view to, in order to perfect the saints. What does perfecting mean? To bring to a condition of fitness. So the implication is clear. The saints, who are the people, those set apart by God or for God, those people can't reach fitness on their own without these people that are going to do this work of the ministry, which is, as the computer catches up with us, too slow, we're going to go again. Waiting on table, service, ministration. So in order to get you to the place where you can actually start ordering your own spirituality, they say you can't do that. You've got to have these ministry people. For what? For the building up, the spiritual advancement and edification. You can't see to your own spiritual edification. You can't see to your own building up. You have to have Paul and his super spiritual ministry gifts so that you can even attain unity of the faith, that you can even attain knowledge of the Christ. See, there he is again, Theo, the Christ, the Elohim, not Kyros, the Lord. So you can grow up, so you can come into the stature of the fullness of the Anointed One. So he's saying you can't do any of that on your own. You have to have the pastors, the evangelists, the prophets. You have to have the fivefold ministry gift, or you're going to be infants. You're going to be tossed by waves. You're going to be carried about by every wind of teaching, because there's men out there with craftiness that are trying to bring you into deceit. Those men were the apostles. So what Paul was trying to say was, listen, you cannot make it on your own spiritually. You don't have what it takes to become full. You don't have what it takes to become mature. You don't have what it takes to become a fully developed spiritual being. And without my help and the help of my fivefold ministry, says Paul, you're going to be carried about by every wind of doctrine. You're going to be carried about by cunning men. You're going to be deceived. And the only way that you can speak the truth in love is speak my truth in loving me, Paul, so that you can grow up even into the Christ. So Paul was trying to say, listen, stop trying to do your own deal and do the deal that I'm telling you to do. And the Ephesians, they weren't having any of it. And I wasn't showing you any of that. I'm sorry, but it was all there, I promise. They weren't having any of it. None of it. Paul's trying to tell them, look, we are not going to have you guys going your own way. We've given these fivefold gifts so we can perfect you, because you can't do it on your own. So we can get you edified because you can't do it on your own. So we can bring you into the truth because you can't do it on your own. So we can make you perfect because you can't do it on your own. So we can bring you to the fullness of the anointing because you can't do it on your own. And if you don't do it our way, you're going to be children. You're going to be tossed to and fro. You're going to be carried about with every wind of doctrine, sleight of men, cunning craftiness, lying in wait to deceive. The only way you can get to the truth in love is to do what we say. That's the only way to get to the Christ. So Paul is trying to tell them, look, stop trying to do it yourself. Do it the way I tell you to do it, or else you're not going to make it. Again, fear-based motivation. The Christ says, look, you don't have original sin. You got the spark of divinity within. I've given you the ways and the truths that lead to life and life more abundant. All you have to do is follow them. Plumb the depths of spirituality within your own heart. Paul says, no. Unless you do it my way, You're going to end up on the highway to hell. You'll find yourself by the wayside because you won't do it my way. So Paul sets up a five-fold bureaucracy between you and spiritual maturity. A five-fold bureaucracy between you and fullness of spirituality. A five-fold bureaucracy, and remember, they're getting paid. A five-fold bureaucracy that it's job security. Not only is there Paul, but there's 5 layers, or at least 4 layers beneath Paul. So that's a lot of job security. You can't do it on your own. You need Paul, and you need Paul's five-fold ministry, 5 fingers keeping a brother and a sister down. Now watch this. It gets even more sinister. Because he gave some to be apostles, and some to be prophets, and some to be evangelists, and some to be teaching pastors. Do you notice something there? You can only be an apostle, or a prophet, or an evangelist, or a pastor, or a teacher. You can't be more than one. So not only does it establish a five-fold bureaucracy between Paul and the individual spiritual adherent, it sets up a situation where it's limiting your power of spiritual ministry, not only to yourself, but to others. So again, it's meant to hold you down. It's meant to hold you back. And it's meant to limit you in what you can grow into, what you can be, what you can become. And it empowers Paul. And it empowers the bureaucracy and the hierarchy that Paul sets up beneath him. And it's the same thing today. Pastors, assistant pastors, junior pastors, youth pastors, music pastors, counseling pastors. They got so many paid people on staff, and they're raking in money. They're sharing the spoils while the people just sit in the pews and do what they're told to do. That's not the way it's supposed to be, ladies and gentlemen. That's not the way that Christ intended for it to be. He intended for you to be moving in all of the ministry gifts. He intends for you to be your own apostle, your own prophet, your own evangelist, your own pastor, your own teacher. And to be able to do that for other people as well until they come into the fullness of faith on their own. Because you can see there could not be any wider a gulf between the teachings of Paul and the teachings of the Christ. And this is why the Ephesians said, listen, Paul, we're not putting up with your crap. They had a riot and they ran him out of Ephesus. And then they put him on trial and branded him as a false apostle. And John, the apostle that the Christ loved, recorded that in Revelation 2 and said, hey, good job, Ephesians. This guy was trying to have dominion over you. You put him in his place, identified him as a false apostle, and the Spirit commends you for so doing. Let me show you that one more time just so you understand exactly what we're saying. This is Revelation chapter 2, written by John, the one that the Christ loved, to the angel of the church in Ephesus, which was the only church in Asia that Paul founded. Here's what the Almighty says. I know your works and your labor and your patience. I know that you cannot bear them which are evil. Paul, evil. I know that you have tried them which say there are apostles and are not. Paul, he said he was an apostle. He was not. That was evil. And you found him to be a liar. So Paul was evil. He was not an apostle, and he was a liar. And this, folks, is the only place in the Bible where anyone other than Paul called him an apostle. Over, I believe it's 140 some odd times he calls himself an apostle. But guess what, folks? You're looking at the only place in the entire scripture where Paul is called an apostle, and he's called a false apostle. An apostle who's one who says he's an apostle and is not, one who's evil, one who is a liar. So that's what the Ephesians said about Paul. The Ephesians said that Paul was not an apostle. The Ephesians said Paul was evil. The Ephesians said Paul was a liar. What say you today in your town? The disciple that the Christ loved communicates the fact that the Ephesians said Paul was evil, he was a liar, he was not an apostle. What say you? What you going to do? Now that the truth, the gospel truth of the Ephesians has broken out all over you, brother. How are you going to handle it? What you going to do? You're going to do the old religious la 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 la, or are you actually going to listen to the gospel truth? Brand Paul a liar, brand Paul a false apostle, brand Paul evil. Forget about this fivefold ministry hand designed to hold you down. Are you going to say, get that con out of my face, and grow into the fullness of stature, and do what the Christ has you to do, be what the Christ has you to be? Are you going to make the change you want to see? Or are you going to go along and be just a good little church person, sit in your pew, pay your money, smile and nod, and go along with the program? Resistance is futile. You will be assimilated. They will take your distinctiveness and add it to their own, and you will be another drone in the collective of Christianity. It's your choice. The collective of Christianity or the gospel truth of the Christ. What's it going to be for you, my friend? What's it going to be for you? I leave it up to you. It is your choice. It is your decision. I bring you to water. I don't make you drink. I bring you to gospel truth. I do not make you think. I do, however, sometimes answer your questions. And this is one of those times. A video tonight with Tamu and Gina, 8 p.m., part 2 of our tarot stuff. Ephesus said, get that con out of my... Ephesus said, get that con out of my face. Yes, they did. Denise made it back to Florida. Good for you. Ashley from the stars. Good morning. The best way to start the day. Thank you, Cuban Pixie. These are the diamond days of our learning. My Jeff is ready to listen to you. Can you believe it? That's fantastic, sheepdog philosophy. That's the way it works. Just say no to Pauline Christianity. The Saul of Tarsus was kind of douchey. Not kinda. He was douchey with a capital D. And now I digress. They said he set up the first corporate structure. Yes, he did. Paul is a Dilrod. The beginnings of the Black Enterprise. Paul was a liar, pants on fire, hang him out on a telephone wire. No doubt about it. Thank you, Kayla Devine. I think you're in the right place. What do you think about Trey Smith? I only know a little bit about Trey Smith. I've offered to get together with him. He has not accepted, but have you happened to mail my rods yet? I've got 14 of them sitting right over there on the floor. I'm going to mail them today. How come none of the historical people from 0 to 100 AD from Canaan didn't know at that time about Jesus? Or, well, there was no Y's or no J's, so they couldn't have known of a Yeshua or a Jesus. I mean, there was no J, there was only a Y, so they couldn't have known of Jesus or a Jeshua. They only knew of the Christ because they hadn't had time yet to make Soylent Jesus. It takes a little while, Seven Master, to create a Soylent Jesus. So there you go. Trey Smith videos, he's like all up like this, right? Real uptight. Yeah, he's got some good stuff, and I would like to work with him, but he so far has not accepted my offers to do so. So there you go, folks. The gospel truth about the fivefold ministry. It's the hand that keeps you down, and it's the hand that keeps you limited, and it's the hand that the Ephesians say, get that out of my face. And that's what it's all about. Do you think there's any truth to the Christ having been in India before beginning his ministry? I think he was in a lot of places. I don't believe Josephus invented Christianity, though. I think Paul invented Christianity with Nero, maybe some help from Josephus. The gospel truth is the gospel truth, absolutely. So there you go. The gospel truth about the fivefold ministry, which is the hand that keeps you down. I'm Jeffrey Daugherty, your friendly neighborhood Christian whistleblower, bringing you the gospel truth, reminding you no sin within, only the spark of divinity. Grow it, nurture it, love yourself, love your neighbor as yourself. The Christ said that's the two things upon which all of his teachings hinge. And then that way, once we love ourselves, once we love our neighbors, then we can begin to make the change we want to see. And then, friends, nothing and no one can stop us. I'm Jeffrey Daugherty, the Christian whistleblower, bringing you the gospel truth, and we are just getting started.